And you need a little bit of room because we're going to be swinging our legs out to the side. So I struggle with that, having enough room because I'm quite tall and I've got a small room. But just sort of, make sure you're not going to catch your toes or anything on anything. And we're just going to start nice and easy, standing tall. Going to have the feet about hip distance apart. And turn the palms forwards. And we're going to practice standing and balancing and just kind of tuning ourselves in a little bit. So we want to close the eyes, which immediately makes you feel a little bit more vulnerable. Allow yourself to rock very gently from side to side and wriggle the toes. So you can still feel a little bit of movement going through from side to side and a little bit from front to back. Now your body will naturally want to feel like it's whirling around in front of you. That's not a problem. We get used to that slowly. Let the shoulders relax down, especially if you spend a lot of time sitting in a slightly unaligned position work-wise, which for many of us when we're working at home at the moment, we're not always in a sort of an ergonomic environment for our bodies. And we're just letting the breath slow down. We're going to try and breathe in through the belly. So really let it expand and then let that breath come up through the collarbones, slowly up. Now we'll open the eyes, bring the hands in towards our heart. Take a little breath. We're going to take a forward fold. So I'm going to bend the knees slightly just as we start to come forward. Try and keep the spine nice and long and flat, and then bring the hands down towards the ground. Bring the hands onto the shins, lift up halfway. Draw the chest forwards, let the tailbone go back. Try not to push the weight into the heels. Keep it even through the foot. Fold down again. You might need to soften the knees yet more further. And bring the hands onto the hips. Draw the shoulders back a little bit and lift up. We'll take the hands out wide as we inhale up. Bring the palms above the head. Hands into the heart. Exhale down slowly again. Bring the hands onto the shins, lift up halfway. You're going to take a couple of breaths here, just letting the body out. So there's very little weight in the hands. We avoid pushing the knees back. Now we fold down again. Bring the hands onto the hips. Lengthen the chest, soft knees and lift. Inhale high. Hands into the heart. Exhaling down. Hands on the shins for lift up. Exhale down. Hands on the hips. And lengthen up. So we've got about another minute of this. So you've got plenty of time to get the hang of it. And it's just bringing the awareness into the feet. To keep the weight even. The muscles will have to do quite a lot of work just to correct the weight distribution because obviously we're moving forwards and backwards. You should be able to get a sense of the feet kind of opening up and spreading a little bit, as if the feet are actually getting a little wider. So we'll come down for the last time. Bring your hands onto the hips, and lift. I'm going to change that a little bit. So we're going to come into chair pose. So again, the feet are going to be hip distance apart, so it's a wide version. Allows us to bring our hands in towards the heart. Just bend the knees so they follow the toes. Allow yourself to sit gently back, keeping the spine long. Lengthen the hands out in line with the shoulders and hips. Palms facing in. Take a little breath. Bring the hands back in towards your heart. Allow yourself to stand gently back up so you feel the muscles working. Take the hands high. Bring them in towards the heart. Soften the knees. Exhale the hands out. Inhale the hands back in towards the heart. Drive through the legs to lift up. Inhale high. Hands into the heart. Soften the knees. As they get a little bit warmer, maybe you can sit a little deeper. We'll come down for the last time. So this does work on the flexibility of the knees, but most importantly, the ankles as well. Lift ourselves up. Now we take the hands directly out in front of the chest this time, palms facing in. We'll soften the knees over the toes. Take that left hand back, draw it towards the back of the mat. Lift it up, roll it up towards the sky, and then we sit down deep. Let the ribs and thighs touch. Bring the hands drape along the floor. We sweep them behind us. We'll slowly take the hands forwards until they line up with the torso, and then we'll lift our body back off the thighs. We'll bring the hands out in front. It's called a Rishi sequence. Take the right arm back. Try and keep the hips pointing forwards. And float on over. And then we just continue with doing that. Nice and easy. So just got a few more repetitions, maybe one to each side. And we'll let the hands come out to the side. Just shake it all out a little bit. Now we're going to take something called an Egyptian twist, which is a balance, standing balance. And I'm just going to turn side on so it's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. I'm going to take the right foot and just bring it in front of the left. Find something to focus on that doesn't move, so preferably not me on the screen. Because if I fall over, you'll just join in. I'm going to take the hands out wide, and then we bend at the elbows. We try and keep the elbows the same height as the shoulders. We're going to keep the hips pointing forwards. We're going to take a breath in. And as we exhale, we're going to rotate the upper body. So we're going to draw the right shoulder forwards and the left shoulder back as far as we can, keeping the hips pointing forwards. And then we'll simply allow ourselves to inhale on the way back. Exhale over to the other side. And we're trying to keep the hands or the elbows about the same height as the shoulders. And it's slowly rotating through. And there's only about 30 degrees of movement in the upper back. So if you're able to turn around completely and turn your chest to the side of the mat, it's more than likely that your hips have followed you around. So imagine you've got a pair of hands wrapped around your hip bones, holding you into position, they're locking you in. Now, this does take a lot of concentration. It certainly gets the legs working. And some days it's easy, and some days it's not. We just let the hands down and shake it out. The shoulders get quite tired very quickly. And then we'll take the left foot in front. So right in line. So it's literally you're walking on a tightrope. Take the hands out nice and wide. Allow yourself to bend. Take that breath in. And then when you're ready, you draw the left shoulder forwards, right shoulder back. Inhale back to the center. And exhale across the other side. Now, strangely enough, when you go across the front leg, it's fairly easy to keep the hips pointing forwards. When you move to the other side, so in this case, when the right shoulder comes round, it gets a little bit easier for the hips to turn off to the side. So you have to be a little bit vigilant about that. You'll be able to feel your feet underneath you, rocking around a little bit, working to hold your balance. Muscles in the legs, although they don't actually feel like they're doing a lot of lifting, they get tired quite quickly because they're trying to work out how to work at a sort of a neurological level. How do they move and hold at the same time? So they get confused. It's not like a muscle weakness, it's like the nervous system starts to wear out. And then we shake it out. So it's a really great way of building your confidence up with your balance. We'll come down to the floor, so we'll bend the knees, let ourselves come down, and we'll take ourselves into down dog. So stretch the legs out a little more in a different way. Have the feet about hip distance apart, so the heels are able to hide behind your ankles. I'm just going to walk out the legs a little bit. The middle finger is more or less pointing forwards. It doesn't matter if it's pointing out to the side, that's okay, just a little bit. But you'd rather not have the middle finger pointing inwards, because that means your shoulders are wrapping around your ears, which isn't great from a support point of view, but it also makes the muscles tired quickly. Lifting the hips up, taking those sitting bones high, feeling a stretch through the back of the leg in the calf. So we do this quite slowly and gently. Those muscles are, they do a lot of work for us. They get tired, need to be given a little bit of TLC now and again. And then we'll float gently into a plank and bring the knees back down to the floor. We'll take cat-cow. We'll just draw the chest forwards, roll the shoulders back a little bit, tailbone up towards the sky. Take the tailbone underneath, let the spine follow, roll through. Inhale forwards again, and exhale. Now from here, we're going to come into a pose called melting heart. So I'm just going to move back a little bit so it's easier to see me. You want to make sure that your knee and your hips stay aligned over the top of each other. You take the hands out a little wider than your shoulders, walk the hands forwards, and allow the chest to sink down towards the ground. Keep the belly drawn in a little bit, sink down slowly, and see how close you can let your chest sink to the ground. You have to press into the hands a little bit as well, just to keep the muscles strong, so it's not just the shoulder joints holding you up. The belly, as I said, is drawn in a little bit. You can press the shins down into the floor a fraction. You don't spend a lot of time here. And then we'll walk the fingers in and then lift ourselves up in that order. We're going to bring the shoulders back over the wrists, tuck the toes underneath, and let ourselves lift up into that down dog. Now we'll walk the hands towards the toes at the back of the mat, so we come into that nice forward fold, gentle on the knees. Bring the hands under the hips, often as we lift up, and just shake it all out a little bit. So the fact that you've been down on the floor and been in down dogs, etc., you might find the blood kind of rushes out of your head when you stand up. It gets you a little bit dizzy, but it goes after a little while. Now, we're going to take ourselves into this pose where we particularly need that bit of room out to the side that we said about moving the legs out from side to side. Imagine for the moment that you've got 4 old-fashioned pennies, or slightly bigger than a 50p piece, and you've got 2 on the front of your mat, and they're directly underneath your heels, and you've got 2 way towards the back of the mat, and they're the same distance apart. So what we're going to do is bend the knees, bring the hands in towards the heart. We're going to shift the weight into the left foot, and slide the right foot back onto the pennies. You go as far back as you can and keep your front knee over your ankle, and then drop the heel in towards the center line. So you're just literally spinning on the ball of the foot. So now your foot is pointing out to the side a little bit, your front foot is pointing forwards, and your hips are slightly twisted. You're going to see if you can bring your hips a little more towards the front of the mat. And you have to press into that outside edge on that back foot. We'll take the hands up towards the sky as we breathe in. This is called Warrior 1. Now I find Warrior 1 a lot more tricky than Warrior 2, but less tricky than Warrior 3. So the number really doesn't have an awful lot of relevance to how it might feel in your body. You're trying to draw the front thigh of this leg towards the back of the mat a little bit, and that helps push the opposite hip forwards just slowly. It takes a little time for the body to kind of open up. And then we'll let the hands come behind our backs, interlace our fingers and draw them down towards the floor. Going to keep the front knee where it was, lengthen the body forwards over the front thigh. So just resting your ribs on top of your leg. Take a little breath and then slide the body onto the inside of that thigh and start taking the hands towards the sky. It's called Humble Warrior. We'll let the hands come down to the floor. Spin the heel on the back foot up towards the sky, and then step into the front of the mat. Try and land on your pennies again. Bring the hands onto the hips, and we'll lift up. We'll take the hands out wide and up towards the sky. Bring the hands in towards the heart. Soften the knees. We're shifting the weight into the right leg this time, and then trying to slide that left foot back onto the pennies. So you have to imagine where it is. You can even have a little look if you can keep your balance, and then drop the heel in. Again, you're trying to keep these hips moving So they're squaring towards the front of the mat. We take hands up above the head. You can always adjust if you don't feel you've got quite in the right place. Remember, you're putting your foot back without really seeing where you're going. And then we'll let the hands come again behind the back. Lengthen, draw the belly in a little. Fold over the front side, keep the front knee where it was. Find our balance, get safe. And then on the exhale, we slide a little bit further onto the inside of that front thigh, letting the head drop, and start to take the hands towards the sky. And again, we'll let the hands come down to the floor. Spin the heel on the back foot, take a little breath. Step into the front of the mat. Toes and feet onto the pennies. Soft knees and a flat back to lift up. Take a little breath, inhale high. Hands into the heart. Exhale down to the floor. Step it back into down dog. Let's take a few breaths here. Trying to let it settle. We're actually pressing the heels towards the back of the mat rather than down, which might sound like a very small detail, but it takes a difference into how you stretch out the back of the legs. You also find that it will help draw your core muscles in more automatically for you, so you have to do less work to draw them in. Now we'll come forwards into that plank again. And we'll bring the knees directly underneath the hips. And we'll sit down gently onto the heels. I'm just going to take a couple of breaths here. Let the knees get used to being in this squished up position. And then we bring the hands in towards the heart. Now, this is a tricky bit. I'm going to press the shin bones down into the floor and let the body lift up. So you feel those thighs do a lot of work as you come up slowly. Going to shift the weight a little bit into the left foot or left leg and bring the right foot forwards, which might not be as easy as it looks. We'll take a little breath from here. Allow ourselves to take the hands out to the side and then up towards the sky. As we bring the hands back in towards the heart, we're going to keep the elbows out wide as high as the shoulders. And then we'll turn the body very gently in towards that front leg. So turning around to the right side. Now we're going to let ourselves fall forwards and see if we can take this left elbow just to the outside of that thigh. Press the heel and the hands together so you lift the chest a little more. And press the hands together. Now draw the belly in as you exhale and lift back up. Allow yourself to extend the hands out wide in line with the shoulders. And then turn your whole body slowly back to the center. Bring your hands to the floor. Step back into the down dog. Come forwards into the plank. Knees to the ground. And we sit back onto the heels. Bring the hands onto the thighs again, just for a few breaths. Let the hands come in towards the heart. Remember, you're going to draw the belly in, press the shins down, and lift yourself up slowly. Try to lean forwards as little as you can. When you're up, I'm going to shift the weight into the right leg a little bit. Bring the left foot forwards. Allow yourself to slowly take the hands up towards the sky as you breathe in. And then in towards the heart. Remember, we're going to keep those elbows really high and wide. Take another breath, and as you exhale, you turn your torso around to the left side as far as you can. And then we slowly lean forwards. Take the elbow to the outside. Press the heel and the hands together. So we get a little lift in the chest. And the hands are sort of more in line up with the heart now than they are with the shoulder, hopefully. So holding these poses tests the balance a little bit. Still be able to feel that front foot and probably your leg wobbling around a little underneath. On the exhale, draw the belly in, lift up. Open the arms out wide, following the chest. Bring the hands gently to the front of the mat. Lift them high, down to the floor. Step back into that down dog. Now we're taking the right leg up towards the sky. Going to point out through the toes. Lift up on the tippy toes of the left foot. Let the hip open out a little bit, but try and keep the shoulder square to the ground. So as you open your hip out, there's a tendency for the shoulders to twist around underneath. Try and keep them square to the front of the mat, into the floor. But one little left breath, and then we'll try and keep that leg straight as it comes down to the floor. Let it land softly, and we'll take the opposite leg up. Twist out the hips. Remember, it's tippy toes and pointing out through toes. You feel that leg getting longer and longer, that's lifting to the sky. And straighter, straighter. And then we'll bring that leg down to the floor again gently. And we'll float into our plank. Bring your knees underneath. Little cat-cow, so we draw the chest forwards. Roll out through the spine. One more. And back. And then one for luck. Now we're going to turn back into a neutral spine, toes of the right foot underneath, and slide that towards the back of the mat, keeping the shoulders over the wrists. Lifting the right leg away from the floor. Going to take a little breath. Allow yourself to take your left hand out in front, palm facing in. And then you make a fist as you bend your right knee and foot to the sky. Draw your knee in towards your chest, surround the spine. Bring the elbow back so the fist touches the hips, and then extend back out. Allow yourself to bend the knee as you bring your fist into a clench. Draw it back in, crunch, and lengthen it out. Bend the knee, crunch it in, and lengthen it out. We've got two more. And last one. Now we're going to lengthen out, stay in position. This time we're going to bend that right knee, look towards the fingertips of the left hand, swoop the hand out to the side into a twist. We'll take it all the way around, find the foot in the air, and allow ourselves to make a connection, hand and foot, and press the shin away. Let the chest lift. So Superman pose into a twist. The first one was Superman Crunch. More release. And lengthen the leg back out. Just bring the hand onto the floor. Now bring the toes onto the ground gently. Allow yourself to slowly take your right foot out to the side. Get to about the point where your foot is level with your hip, or thereabouts. This is called gate pose. Comes in various levels, so this is going to be that lowest level that we play with. And take a little breath from here. Tuck the toes on the left foot underneath, so the heel points up towards the sky. And we're going to slowly pivot on the right heel and let ourselves sit back onto the left one. So legs out to the sky, pointing up towards the sun, into the sun. And then we're going to see if we can walk the hands a little further forwards and down to the floor. So it's like we're coming into child's pose, except we've only got one knee to play with. The other leg is out to the side. Now the toes want to be pointing up to the sky, and you lengthen out through the heel a little bit, so the muscles that are on the top of the thigh feel like they're drawing back in towards the hip a little bit. And slowly bring the hands back in. And then lift ourselves back up. Untangle the toes. Slide the foot back. Bring the knee back in. We'll take a couple of rounds of cat-cow. Just draw the chest forwards. Roll it through. Come into a neutral spine. So this time we tuck the toes of that left leg underneath. Let the foot lift away from the floor. Take the right hand out in front. Take a little breath. Make a fist. Crunch it in for number one. Lengthen it out. Bend the knee. Draw it in. Squeeze the air out of your body as you lengthen. Bend the knee. Number four. Bend the knee for number five. Remember to lengthen out. Leave that leg out there. Bend the knee this time. And we can take that right hand out to the side. Float round. Find some toes. Press back. Let the chest lift a little bit. Find our balance. Breathe gently. And we release. Lengthen everything out. Bring that foot gently to the floor. Toes are still tucked under. Slide the left foot off the mat to the side. More aligning with hip. Take a little breath here. We just hold it for a couple of seconds to let that hip get used to the idea of being stuck out to the side. This bottom thigh wants to be vertical, and the one that we're leaning on. If you have taken your leg out to the side too far and you've got a little bit of an angle coming underneath you, just makes it more difficult in the joint. So you want to try and keep it relatively aligned. Then we can start to tuck the toes of the right foot underneath. When you feel safe on your knee, allow yourself to pivot slowly as you flex the left foot. Sit down onto your heel. Take a breath when you're ready. And then move the hands even further forwards. So bring your ribs down towards your thighs, or as close as you can get. I'm going to extend the leg out to the side, drawing that thigh in a little bit towards the hip. Now, if your leg's not used to being in this kind of position, and why the heck would it be? You'll find that the muscles will kind of shake and tremble a little bit. That's perfectly normal. It's just the nervous system going, I'm not too sure where I am. So I don't know whether I'm pulling or letting go or how I'm supposed to work. It's just learning. And then we'll slowly walk the hands back in. Let ourselves lift back up. Slide the foot all the way back. Bring the knee back underneath. We'll take a couple of rounds. Cat-cow. And then we'll let ourselves come back into down dog. So tuck the toes underneath. Press back gently. We'll walk the hands to meet the toes at the back of the mat into a forward fold. One nice exhale here. And then bring the hands onto the hips, soften the knees, let the back lengthen up and ease up to standing. Whew. So, where do we go from here? Front of the mat. Feet to hips, distance apart. Bring the hands in towards the heart. Scoop the hands up as we breathe in towards the heart. Exhale down towards the toes. We're taking the right foot back into a big step and dropping the heel in, ready for warrior two. We'll bring the hands onto the front side to lift up, and then we'll bring the hands in front of the body as we turn it to the side and just take the hands out nice and wide. Now we'll take a little breath from there. Turn the palm on the front hand. Going to lift that up, and as you do, you drop the back hand down onto the thigh. And bring the arm closer in towards your ear, and then extend over towards the back of the mat as far as you can. Reverse warrior. Come back into warrior two. Take a little breath. Lengthen the body forwards over that front thigh. Bring the forearm down. Allow ourselves to take the top arm up towards the sky. Take a little breath. We're going to bring the hand down towards the floor. Bring the other hand onto the inside of that front foot as well. We'll walk the fingers around to the long side of the mat. Now we're going to zigzag the heels in once, then the toes come in once, and then the heels come in once, which is about how much I need to then be able to let my bottom sink down to about the level of my knees. But my shins, they're still vertical, and the knees are lengthening out to the side a little bit. So you might need to wiggle around a little bit more, and in fact you might even need to sort of rock around a little bit to find an ideal position for yourself. Once you're ready, you're going to draw the belly and bring the hands in towards the heart and lift up. So the bum's still low. Now you're going to make a little rose bowl with your hands. So the little finger come together, thumbs come together, the rest of the hand opens up in front of the chest. As you inhale, you're going to open the legs up, take that rose bowl towards the sky, directly above your head. Bring your hands back in towards your heart. Sink your knees back to where they started from. And then we're going to lift up. Now you're going to try and keep the tailbone pointing down a little bit and drawing the belly in. Inhale on the way up. Exhale on the way down. Two more. Now I kind of thought out and planned out where I needed to be for my legs to swing out to the side. I forgot that I'm going to have a lamp straight above my head. to keep sticking my fingers into that. You can see it moving around. We'll bring the hands back onto the thighs. Let ourselves hinge forwards with a flat back. Bring the hands safely to the floor. Walk the fingers around to the long side, to the front of the mat. Step in. Soften the knees, flat back and lift up. Take an inhale to the sky. Hands into the heart. Exhale down. I know you enjoyed it, so we'll do it to the other side as well. We'll take the left foot back and drop the heel in. Bring the hands onto the front side to lift. Make sure your front foot is pointing forwards. Bring the hands across the body and open up into your warrior two. Turn the palm gently on the front hand. Lift that up. Drop the other hand down. Bring the arm close in towards your ear. Then extend over towards the back of the mat. Keep the back leg strong, pressing down. We'll come back into warrior two. Extend over that front thigh. Bring the forearm down. Take the top arm up towards the ceiling. Build stretch up towards the sky. And then bring the hand gently down onto the inside of that front foot. Bring the other hand down as well. Let yourself to walk your fingers around long side of the mat. Zigzag the toes in. Probably got a little bit more of an idea of where you need to be. You can wriggle from side to side. And then bring the hands onto the hips when you're ready. Sorry, onto the thighs when you're ready. And let yourself lift up. We're going to take a little breath from here. Allow ourselves to hinge forwards again. Bring the hands onto the floor below you. And we're going to slowly walk the fingers towards the back end of the mat. So we're going to lift the heel of that foot away from the ground. Spin on the front heel so the toes are up towards the sky. So eventually you're sitting on the heel. That knee is pointing out towards the back of the mat a little bit. And then we slowly lift our way back up. Walk ourselves across to the front end of the mat. Slowly lift the heel, pivot on the back foot. So you keep the foot flexed. You're actually trying to draw this thigh back in towards the hip a little bit. It's like everything's drawing in. The toes are coming in as well. You're bracing your arm and your knee on the front leg to keep the joint open and wide. So you should feel quite a bit of stretch through the groin. Fingertips are on the floor. And then we'll lift slowly again. Come back into the center. Walk the hands around to the front end of the mat. Take a little breath. Allow ourselves to step back into our down dog this time. And from here, we'll let the knees come down to the floor. Untuck the toes and come into child's pose. This time we're going to see if we can get the head to the floor. If not, we can just slide a brick underneath or a block. And then take the hands towards your toes. But you need to have your head touching something if you're going to take your hands back. And the knees are fairly narrow in terms of their setting, which means it's a little bit difficult to breathe, which means we find somewhere else to breathe into. And feel the ribs open in the back. Maybe feel the shoulders expand a little as well. Get a slight sense that your internal organs are rearranging themselves to accommodate the requirement to sit in this pose. There might be a little bit of gurgling going on in the belly department. Okay, we're going to take hands forwards gently, place them onto the floor and let ourselves lift up. We'll take that block, if you haven't already, and just place that in front. And let ourselves take the feet towards the front of the mat. Sitting up nice and tall. I'm just going to draw the flesh out a little bit from side to side. Bring the feet together so the toes and the heels touch the front of the mat. And then we'll bring the right heel in towards the groin and let the knee out to the side. If it doesn't go down on the floor, again, you pack it up with either books, blocks, bricks, cushions, whatever you've got. You turn the hips so that they now face the front of the mat, because as you brought your right heel in, you kind of swiveled a little bit. Make sure the front foot is pointing towards the sky. Put a little bend into the front knee. Bring the hands onto the shin. Now you're going to lift your body up as if you're trying to sort of reach for the stars and get yourself off of the ground. Hinge over the hips and let the body sink forwards. Now you keep looking towards your toes rather than down towards the ground. So you're looking ahead slightly. You're going to press the hands very lightly into the shin bone. So you want to keep the bend in the knee. And then as you press down, you can lift your chest forwards and up a little bit. So it feels nice and strong in the upper part of the body, like everything is lengthening up out of the pelvis. And we don't worry about, getting the body flat to the floor by a long way. We're at 45 degrees, that's more than enough. And even less than 45 degrees is enough as well. The fact that we're pressing the heel into the floor a little bit, we've got this bend in the knee, we're stretching the hamstrings and the calf muscles. And we've done a lot of that today anyway. But as we lengthen out, what we're actually doing is getting this connection with the glutes and the lower back muscles and lengthening them out, giving them a little space. You can probably feel them working as well. Take a last breath here. Bring the hands to the floor and let ourselves swap over. So we just lift up. Bring the feet back out in front. Bring the left leg in. Rearrange the hips. Put a little bend in the knee. Press the shin into place with the hands. Toes up towards the sky. Foot flexed a little bit. Get that space in the body so the body actually lengthens up first. And then fold it over the thigh. Press a little into the shin with the hands so you can draw the chest up. Don't even have to get as far forwards on one side as you do in the other. If it's a little bit different, it's not a problem. It's not about where you get to, it's about how you feel. So you have to consider, what's happening in the back of your leg and your lower back muscles and across the front of your body, all at the same time. Okay, we're going to let the hands come to the floor and lift ourselves back up. Lengthen the legs out. Now, as you do, we'll take the right foot underneath this time and out towards the left hip. Now, you want this leg flat to the floor and the knee pointing forwards so that it's pointing the same direction as your hips. And you'll take the left foot across and you can use your hand, bring the foot in close to your body and have the knee high. Again, you lengthen the body up a little bit so you tilt the pelvis forwards a fraction. We'll take the right hand up towards the sky, rotate the body across to the left, and then bring the arm behind the knee, or the leg, so we can just brace the two together. They call it cantilevering. And if it feels good, you look over the back shoulder. If it doesn't feel good in the neck, you just let your chin follow where your heart is pointing, which is going to be slightly forwards, off to the side. Try and keep both sitting bones on the ground. So if you found yourself leaning over a little bit, see if you can bring yourself back into the center. And then we can release from there. Take the legs out again. And we'll finish off with the last side. So that left foot comes underneath, the right foot goes across. You sit up tall. Take the left hand out. Turn to the right, arm and leg against each other. Rear shoulder if it feels good. So again, you can work slightly differently from side to side as long as it feels comfortable. And we'll release from there as well. Now we're going to just roll off and move the block out of the way. Take the legs out in front. Bring the feet together. I'm going to take this left leg and just allow the shin to follow the line of the front of the mat. So my shin and ankle now are resting on top of the thigh. They're just behind my kneecap. They're not on top of it. They're just closer towards me. I'm going to keep this foot flexed towards the knee. I'm going to let the knee drop as much as it can to the floor. It's going to be different on different sides. I'll take the hands behind me a little bit, but about shoulder distance apart, and allow myself to lean back. I'm going to squeeze the shoulder blades together so I open the front of the chest and lift it up towards the sky. And I'm going to slide slowly my right foot towards me and see if I can get the sole of my right foot to be on the floor. It's called a seated figure four. Now that might feel more than enough in your hip and your knee, and if it does, that's great. But if you want to, you can slide yourself forwards a little bit and then just walk the hands in. Now if you do that, you have to lift the chest up and squeeze the shoulders back again because you tend to lose it as you move forwards. Now you can bring yourself right up so that the bottom is against the heel. If you wish to, you can come that far in. You know, some people's hips are very open and they need to get that close to feel any kind of stretch in the leg. But if you're feeling a nice gentle stretch here, this is where you stay. You're working through the shoulders and pressing down. So it's not all just about legs. There's a little bit of shoulder strength coming in here. And then we can release and take the leg back out. We'll take it to the other side. Bring it across. Just take a moment to let this knee, hip get in the comfortable position. It's very unlikely that your body is perfectly symmetrical, so it's going to feel different from side to side and look different. That's not a problem. That's what we work with, it's our body. And then when you're ready, you take the hands back. Feel comfortable. Now I've got my fingers pointing forwards. If you want them out to the side or the other way around, again, that's your choice. It feels good in the wrists. As long as you get that little bit of lift in the chest, and then slide the left foot in so the sole comes to the floor. That's our minimum place we want to be. And then if it feels good, you can walk it in a little closer. Again, resetting shoulders and opening the chest. And drawing the belly into the spine a little bit to help get that space and encourage the chest to lift. And then we'll relax out of that as well. And shake it all out. Now we're going to get closer to the floor, so I've brought an extra layer with me. I'm going to take the block towards the back of the mat. I have the knees high and hands behind to roll myself gently down to the floor. If that doesn't feel good in your spine, you roll onto the side of your body and come into this position. And then when we're ready, we're just going to come into happy baby quickly. So we'll draw the knees in towards the chest, take the knees wide, chin in towards the chest, slide the fingers down the shins, wrap hands around the outside edge of the little toe, let the head come back down to the floor, and then keeping the knees close in towards the armpits, just raise a foot at a time up towards the sky, and let yourself have a little rock on the spine. Roll around if that feels good. Eyes closed. Last breath here. And then we'll lower one foot at a time down to the floor, close to your bottom. And drape an extra layer over, which could be a blanket or a top, whatever you've got. Slide the feet out to the corner edges of the mat. Let toes roll out to the side. Get the hands out to the side of the body and palms face up. Wriggle the hips and the groin and the shoulders around a little bit. So everything feels like it's lengthened out and kind of settled back into its natural place. And then we'll be still for a moment. Just breathe. You'll slowly begin to stretch the fingers and toes. Let the breathing increase a little bit in terms of its depth. Let the wrists and the ankles move. And take a bigger breath. Use that to stretch out any way that feels good. And then when you're ready, allow yourself to ease the heels one leg at a time in towards the body. And we'll take a final little hug and a little rock gently from side to side or stirring the hips, whatever feels good. And from here, we roll onto our right side, keeping ourselves tucked into that nice little ball. And then when you're ready, we press into the ground with the hands on an exhale. Bring ourselves back up to seated posture. Bring your hands in towards the heart as you take a longer breath in. Closing the eyes, dropping the chin to the chest. And as you slowly exhale, let yourself bow to the floor to seal your practice for the morning. On the inhale, let that spine build, the head lift, eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me. See you next week.